I'm Angela, 38 female. I live in a quiet suburban town with my son, Noah. For the past 12 years, my life has revolved around him. Noah was born with a rare genetic disorder that affects his mobility and requires round-the-clock care, specialized equipment, and a home adapted to his needs. My job as a marketing manager is demanding, but it's nothing compared to the demands of being a full-time caregiver. Still, he's my world, and I'd do anything for him. My late grandmother, a woman of incredible foresight and compassion, understood this better than anyone. Before she passed, she set up a trust fund specifically for Noah, a financial safety net designed to ensure he would always have the care he needed, long after I was gone. It was a promise of security, a foundation of love that I thought was untouchable. I never imagined that the very people I trusted to protect it would be the ones to shatter it into a million pieces, leaving me to pick up the remains of their betrayal. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My grandmother, Eleanor, was the matriarch of our family in every sense of the word. She was a formidable woman, sharp as a tack even in her 80s, with a keen sense of justice and an even keener eye for character. She had built a successful business from the ground up and understood the value of hard work and careful planning. When Noah was born, she saw the challenges ahead for me and my son. While the rest of the family offered sympathies and fleeting offers of help, Grandma Eleanor offered something tangible, something that would last: a future. She created the Noah's Care Trust with a substantial portion of her estate. I remember the day she explained it to me, her voice firm but kind, her hand resting on my arm. "Angela," she had said, "love is important, but love can't pay for physical therapy or a new wheelchair. This money is for Noah. Not for you, not for your brother, not for anyone else. It's for his well-being, his comfort, and his security." The trust was meticulously structured. My parents, David and Helen, were named as the trustees, along with myself. Grandma had reasoned that having multiple trustees would ensure checks and balances. My father, a retired accountant, was supposed to be the financial wizard, ensuring the funds were invested wisely. My mother, a retired librarian, was the organizer, the keeper of records. I was the one who knew Noah's needs intimately. Together, we were meant to be a triumvirate of protection for my son. For years, the arrangement worked perfectly. We held quarterly meetings, initially at my grandmother's insistence, and the tradition continued after her passing. My father would present the financial statements, showing the steady, conservative growth of the principal. My mother would have the minutes from the last meeting neatly typed up. I would provide updates on Noah's medical expenses, upcoming needs, and any requests for disbursements. We used the funds for big-ticket items: a custom-built ramp for the front of our house, a state-of-the-art power wheelchair, and a portion of the down payment on our accessible bungalow. Every withdrawal was documented, discussed, and approved unanimously. There was never a hint of discord. It felt like the one part of my life that was truly secure, a pillar I could lean on when everything else felt overwhelming. My brother, Mark, was never involved with the trust. He was 3 years younger than me and had always followed a different path. While I was focused on building a stable life for my son, Mark was a born salesman, chasing commissions and living a life that seemed exciting but perpetually unstable. He sold luxury cars, and his income was a roller coaster of feast or famine. He had a natural charm that could win anyone over, but he lacked discipline. He'd have a great month and spend it all on a flashy watch or a vacation, only to be struggling to make rent a few months later. My parents, especially my mother, always had a soft spot for him. They saw his potential and were constantly bailing him out of financial jams. I loved my brother, but I'd long since grown weary of his irresponsibility. The last trust meeting we had, about 6 months ago, was as routine as ever. The fund was healthy, sitting at just over $350,000. We approved a disbursement for a new set of custom leg braces for Noah and scheduled our next meeting. My father clapped his binder shut with a satisfied smile. "It's good to see Aliner's legacy doing exactly what she intended," he said. My mother nodded in agreement, her gaze soft as she looked at me. "She would be so proud of you, Angela, of how you care for that boy." I left that meeting feeling a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the money, but for the family I believed was united and its commitment to my son. I was a fool, a blind, trusting fool. The foundation I thought was built on solid rock was nothing but sand, and the tide was about to come in. The betrayal wasn't just on the horizon, it had already happened. I just didn't know it yet. I was living in the calm before the storm, completely oblivious to the hurricane of deceit that was gathering just behind the smiles of the people I trusted most in the world. The first sign that something was wrong was subtle, almost dismissible. I had submitted a request for a disbursement from the trust to cover a new series of intensive physical therapy sessions for Noah. His doctor had recommended a new specialist who was having incredible results, but their clinic wasn't covered by our insurance. The cost was significant, around $15,000 for the initial program. I emailed the request to my parents, as per our usual protocol, expecting a quick confirmation so I could book the appointments. A week went by with no response. That was unusual. My mother was typically prompt, replying within a day. I sent a follow-up email. Nothing. I called my father. He didn't pick up, which was also strange. He was retired. His phone was usually glued to his hand. I finally got a hold of my mother that evening. Her voice was strained, distant. "Oh, Angela, honey, I saw your email. Your father and I have just been so busy." "Busy?" I asked, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine," she said, a little too quickly. "We'll look at the request this weekend. We just need to review the current market conditions." Market conditions? We never talked about market conditions for a $15,000 withdrawal from a $350,000 fund. It was an absurd excuse. "Mom, what's going on? Noah needs this therapy. Dr. Evans says it could make a huge difference for him." "We know, dear, we know. We just need a few days," she insisted, her voice wavering slightly. She ended the call by saying she had to go, that something was boiling over on the stove. The weekend came and went, still nothing. My calls went to voicemail. My texts were met with silence. The knot in my stomach was now a cold, heavy stone. Something was terribly wrong. I decided to take matters into my own hands. As a trustee, I had online access to the trust's investment account. I rarely used it, preferring to rely on my father's quarterly reports, but I had the login information saved in a secure file. My hands trembled as I typed in the username and password. The page loaded. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. The portfolio summary, which should have read a balance of over $350,000, showed a different number. A much, much smaller number. $7,842.15. I blinked, thinking it was a glitch. I refreshed the page. The number remained. I clicked on the transaction history, my heart pounding in my ears like a drum, and there it was. A single, massive withdrawal. Date 4 months ago. Transaction type, wire transfer. Amount, $345,000. My breath hitched, I couldn't breathe. My vision swam. $345,000. Gone, transferred out in one lump sum just a few weeks after our last meeting. It was impossible. It couldn't be real. A withdrawal of that size would require the consent of the trustees. I certainly hadn't consented. I hadn't even known. The blood drained from my face. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to grip the edge of my desk. My parents, they had done this. They had gone behind my back, violated the trust, and drained nearly every penny of the money set aside for their disabled grandson's future. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, it felt like a physical blow. These were the people who had raised me, the people who had cooed over Noah as a baby, who had promised my grandmother they would protect his legacy. I grabbed my keys, my mind a whirlwind of rage and disbelief. I drove to their house, breaking every speed limit. I didn't bother to knock, using my old key to burst through the front door. I found them in the living room, watching television as if it were just another normal Tuesday evening. They looked up, startled, their faces a mask of feigned surprise that quickly crumbled when they saw the look in my eyes. "Where is it?" I asked, my voice shaking with a fury I had never felt before. "Where is Noah's money?" My father, the retired accountant, the man of numbers and reason, couldn't even meet my gaze. He just stared at the floor, his face pale. My mother, however, stood up, her expression hardening. "Angela, you shouldn't have just barged in here." "Don't talk to me about manners," I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat. "You stole from my son, from your grandson, $345,000. Where is it?" Finally, my mother's composure broke. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of defiance. "We didn't steal it," she said, her voice trembling. We loaned it to your brother. He needed it." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "You loaned it to Mark," I repeated, my voice dripping with incredulity. "You loaned Noah's entire future to my irresponsible, perpetually broke brother? Are you insane?" "Don't you talk about your brother that way?" My father finally spoke up, finding his voice. He rose to his feet, his face flushed with a mixture of shame and anger. "Mark was in a tough spot. He had a real opportunity, a chance to finally get himself on solid ground." "A tough spot? Dad, Mark's entire life is a tough spot," I retorted, throwing my hands up in exasperation. "What opportunity could possibly be worth $345,000? What did he do? Buy the car dealership?" "He bought a house," my mother said softly, as if this were a perfectly reasonable explanation. "He and his new girlfriend, Tiffany, found the perfect place. It was a foreclosure, an amazing deal, but they needed to move fast. They needed a substantial down payment to secure it. This was his chance to finally build some equity, to have a real asset." I stared at them, speechless. A down payment. They had gutted my son's lifeline, the fund meant for his lifelong medical care, for a down payment on a house for my brother. The absurdity of it was staggering. "A down payment? You drained a medical trust fund for a down payment? Do you hear yourselves? That money was for wheelchairs, for therapies, for surgeries. It was for his survival, not for Mark to play house with his flavor-of-the-month girlfriend." "Tiffany is a lovely girl," my mother sniffed, her defensiveness growing. "And it's not playing house, it's an investment. Mark is going to pay it all back, with interest." "Oh, he is he?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Mark, who can't manage to pay his credit card bills on time, is suddenly going to materialize hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay you back. How? Is he going to win the lottery?" "He got a promotion at work. He's on a new commission structure," my father insisted, though his words lacked conviction. "He's getting serious about his future. This house is the first step. He has a plan to pay it back over time." "A plan? Show it to me," I demanded. "Show me the legally binding loan agreement, the repayment schedule, the collateral. You're an accountant, Dad. You, of all people, should know how this works. You wouldn't just hand over that kind of money without paperwork, would you?" The ensuing silence was my answer. They just stood there, looking at their feet like guilty children. There was no paperwork, there was no loan agreement, there was no plan. They had simply taken the money and given it to their favored son, armed with nothing but his empty promises and their own foolish hopes. "You forged my signature, didn't you?" I asked, the realization dawning on me. The withdrawal would have required a signature from all three of us. My father winced. We acted in what we believed were the best interests of the family." "The family," I seethed. "Is Noah not part of this family? Or does his well-being just not matter as much as Mark's desire to own a piece of property? You didn't just steal from him. You broke the law. You committed fraud." "It's not like that, Angela," my mother pleaded, her voice cracking. "We were going to tell you. We were just waiting for the right time. Mark was so happy, so excited. We didn't want to spoil it with a big family argument." "Spoil it?" I was shaking now, the adrenaline and rage coursing through me. "You've already spoiled everything. You've spoiled Noah's future. You've spoiled my trust in you. You've spoiled the memory of Grandma Aliner, who trusted you to be honorable. I backed away from them, toward the door, feeling an overwhelming need to get away, to breathe air that wasn't poisoned by their lies. "We did it for your brother," my father said one last time, a pathetic attempt at justification. "He's our son, he needed our help." I stopped at the door and turned to face them, my eyes cold and hard. "I am your daughter, and Noah is your grandson, and that money wasn't yours to give. It had a purpose, and you ignored it because it was easier to give Mark what he wanted than to do what was right." I walked out, slamming the door behind me. The drive home was a blur of tears and fury. Their excuse was not just hollow, it was an insult. They had chosen their healthy, irresponsible son over their disabled, vulnerable grandson. They had prioritized a real estate investment over a child's quality of life. The violation of trust was a deep, festering wound, but as the initial shock began to subside, it was replaced by something else, a cold, steely resolve. They thought this was over. They thought they could just give the money away and smooth things over with pathetic excuses. They had no idea who they were dealing with. They had forgotten about my grandmother's meticulous nature. And they had certainly forgotten about the fine print. After a sleepless night spent oscillating between heartbroken sobs and white-hot rage, I knew I couldn't let my emotions consume me. Crying wouldn't refill Noah's trust fund. Screaming at my parents wouldn't undo their betrayal. I needed a plan. I needed to be strategic, cold, and calculating. I needed to channel my grandmother a leaner. I went to the old roll-top desk in my study, the one she had left me in her will. Inside, in a locked drawer, was my personal copy of the Noah's Care Trust legal documents. It was a thick, intimidating binder filled with legalese and complex financial jargon. In the past, I had relied on my father to interpret the finer points, trusting his expertise. Now, that trust was shattered, and I had to become the expert myself. I spent the entire day with that binder, a pot of coffee, and a yellow legal pad. I read every single word, from the preamble to the last appendix. I highlighted every sentence that defined the duties and limitations of the trustees. I made notes on the sections detailing the process for disbursements and the legal ramifications of misuse of funds. It was dense and exhausting, but my grief fueled a laser-like focus. And then I found it. It was in a subsection titled Restrictions on Use of Principal for Real Estate Investments. My grandmother, ever the pragmatist, had foreseen a dozen different ways people could try to exploit a large sum of money. She had included clauses to prevent the funds from being used for risky stock market gambles, for starting speculative businesses, or for personal loans to family members without a rigorous, legally documented approval process. But this clause, this beautiful, perfect clause, was something else entirely. It was so specific, so tailored, that it felt like a message sent from beyond the grave. The clause stated, "Under no circumstances shall the principal or interest of this trust be utilized for the purchase, acquisition, or as a down payment for any residential property that includes an in-ground swimming pool." I read it once, then twice, then a third time, letting the words sink in. An in-ground swimming pool. It was such a strange, specific prohibition. Why a pool? Then I remembered. Years ago, when Mark was a teenager, he had gone to a friend's pool party. He had been reckless, as usual, diving into the shallow end and hitting his head. The injury wasn't serious in the end, but it had been a terrifying ordeal, resulting in a hospital visit and a stern lecture from my grandmother about the hidden dangers and liabilities of residential pools. She had called them attractive nuisances, a term I now recalled with crystal clarity. She saw them as frivolous, dangerous, and a potential financial drain, the exact opposite of everything the trust stood for. My heart began to race, not with anger, but with a surge of adrenaline-fueled hope. Did Mark's new house have a pool? It was a long shot, a ridiculously specific detail that I had no way of knowing. My parents had only said he'd bought a house. They hadn't mentioned any features. Mark and I were not on speaking terms. Our relationship had been strained for years due to his unreliability, and this betrayal had severed it completely. I couldn't just call him and ask. I needed to do some recon. Mark's girlfriend, Tiffany, was a prolific social media user. I had muted her on all platforms years ago, tired of her constant stream of selfies and vapid inspirational quotes. But now, her online presence was a potential goldmine. I logged into my rarely used Instagram account and searched for her profile. It was public. I scrolled through her feed. There were dozens of photos of her and Mark, clinking champagne glasses, posing in front of his latest demo car. And then I saw it. A post from 3 weeks ago. It was a picture of them standing in front of a large 2-story suburban house. A sold sign was planted in the manicured lawn. The caption read, "Making our dreams come true. So excited for the next chapter with my amazing man. Homeowner's dream house pool party time." My eyes zeroed in on the last hashtag, pool party time. I scrolled frantically through the rest of the photos in the post. The second picture was of them in the backyard. And there it was, sparkling in the sunlight, an obscene slash of turquoise against the green grass. A large, kidney-shaped, in-ground swimming pool. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. It was the smile of a predator that had just cornered its prey. My grandmother, the architect of this beautiful legal trap, had handed me the weapon I needed. My parents and my brother had been so blinded by their greed and favoritism that they hadn't bothered to read the fine print. They had used my disabled son's money to buy a house that explicitly violated the terms of the trust. This changed everything. This wasn't just a moral failing or a familial betrayal anymore. It was a clear, unambiguous, and legally actionable breach of contract, a breach of their fiduciary duty as trustees. They hadn't just loaned the money, they had misused it in a way that was expressly forbidden. I closed the binder, my mind already racing ahead, formulating the next steps. The rage was still there, a simmering coal in my chest, but it was now tempered with icy purpose. They had left me with less than $8,000 to care for my son. They had left me feeling powerless and alone. But my grandmother had left me something far more valuable, a clause. A clause that was about to bring their new, perfect little world crashing down around them. The housewarming party was coming, and I was going to bring a gift they would never forget. With the knowledge of the pool clause, my mission became crystal clear. I wasn't just going to get the money back, I was going to enforce the terms of the trust with surgical precision. This required more than just a confrontation, it required a legal strategy. My first step was to find the right lawyer. I didn't go to a general family law attorney. I researched and found a specialist in estate and trust litigation, a shark who knew this area of law inside and out. His name was Arthur Vance, a man in his late 50s with a reputation for being methodical, relentless, and utterly devoid of sentimentality when it came to his cases. He was perfect. I booked a consultation and laid everything out for him. The trust documents, the bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawal, the social media posts from Tiffany with photographic evidence of the house and the pool. I highlighted the specific clause. Arthur listened intently, his face impassive. He reviewed the documents, his eyes scanning the pages with an unnerving intensity. When I finished, he leaned back in his leather chair, tapping a pen on his desk. "This is remarkably clean, Ms. Thompson," he said, his voice calm and measured. "Your grandmother was a very clever woman. This isn't just a breach of fiduciary duty, which is already serious. This is a direct, flagrant violation of an explicit and unambiguous term of the trust. Your parents and your brother have walked into a legal minefield." He explained the process. First, we would file a petition with the probate court. We would be seeking several things: the immediate removal of my parents as trustees, the appointment of an independent professional trustee to manage the fund going forward, a court order for the immediate return of the full $345,000, plus any interest it would have accrued, and finally, legal fees. "But where will they get the money?" I asked. "They don't have it. It's all tied up in that house." A thin smile touched Arthur's lips. "That's their problem, not yours. The court will order the return of the funds. If they cannot produce the cash, they will have to liquidate assets to satisfy the judgment. And since their primary new asset is the house, well, You can see where this is going." He was right. The house itself, the symbol of their betrayal, would be the source of its own demise. "And my brother?" I asked. "Your brother is not a trustee, so he is not in breach of the trust itself," Arthur explained. "However, he is the recipient of knowingly misappropriated funds. We will be naming him in the suit as well, to ensure the court can trace the assets. The court order will effectively force the sale of the property. He will not get to keep his dream house that was bought with stolen money." The plan was brutal. It was definitive, and it was exactly what they deserved. We spent the next 2 weeks preparing the case. Arthur's team drafted the petition, a formidable document detailing every aspect of my parents' misconduct. We subpoenaed the bank records for the trust and my brother's account to officially document the flow of money. We even hired a local photographer to take discreet, time-stamped pictures of the house from the street, clearly showing the pool in the backyard, just in case the social media posts were ever deleted. Every I was dotted, every T was crossed. While the legal machine was grinding away, I had to play a part. I needed my family to believe I was still just angry and hurt, not that I was preparing a full-scale legal assault. I answered my mother's tearful phone calls with curt, one-word answers. I let her ramble on about how they were so sorry and how they were sure Mark would make it right. I let them believe they were in control of the narrative. The peak of their audacity came when my mother called to invite me to Mark and Tiffany's housewarming party. "I know things are tense right now, honey," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "But this is a big step for your brother. It would mean so much to him if you and Noah came, to show that we're still a family." The sheer gall of it almost made me laugh. They wanted to parade their ill-gotten gains in front of me, to have me and my disabled son bless the very home thaw. T was purchased with the money meant to secure his future. They wanted me to smile and pretend everything was okay, to sweep their monumental betrayal under the rug for the sake of appearances. "You know what, Mom?" I said, my voice carefully neutral. "Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time we all got together and put our cards on the table. We'll be there." Her sigh of relief was audible. "Oh, wonderful, Angela. I'm so glad you're being the bigger person." "Oh, I am," I said to the dead air after she'd hung up. "I am being a much, much bigger person than you can possibly imagine." The party was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon. On the Friday before, Arthur filed the petition with the court. He also arranged for a process server to be on standby. The trap was set. The documents were filed. All that was left was for the guests of honor to walk into it. My attendance at that party wasn't about forgiveness or family unity. It was about seeing their faces when the life they had stolen for my brother came crashing down. It was about witnessing the moment they realized their hollow excuses and empty promises had a price. And the bill had just come due. The day of the housewarming party was bright and sunny, a perfect day for a celebration. It made the cold knot of anticipation in my stomach feel even tighter. I dressed myself and Noah carefully. I chose a simple, elegant dress for myself, something that projected quiet confidence. For Noah, I picked out his favorite bright blue polo shirt. We were not going to look like victims. We were going to look like survivors. As I pulled up to the house, I could see they had gone all out. Balloons were tied to the mailbox. Cars lined the street. Through the large picture window, I could see a crowd of people laughing and chatting. My stomach churned, but I took a deep breath, unbuckled Noah from his car seat, and got him into his wheelchair. We made our way up the brand-new paved walkway, a path paid for with his future. The moment we entered, a hush fell over the room. All eyes were on us. My mother rushed over, her face a mask of strained cheerfulness. "Angela, Noah, you came, I'm so glad." She bent down to kiss Noah, who recoiled slightly. "Of course we came," I said, my voice cool and steady. "We wouldn't miss Mark's big day." I saw my brother, Mark, across the room. He was holding court by a large glass sliding door that led to the backyard, a beer in his hand, a smug grin on his face. He looked like the king of his new castle. He caught my eye and gave me a hesitant nod, the first acknowledgement he'd given me since I discovered the theft. I didn't return it. My father was lurking near the kitchen, looking deeply uncomfortable. He saw me and immediately busied himself with rearranging a platter of cheese. They were all acting as if a simple party could erase the grand larceny they had committed. I navigated Noah's wheelchair through the crowd, ignoring the sympathetic looks and whispered greetings from family friends who clearly knew there was drama but didn't know the details. I positioned us near the back of the living room, giving me a clear view of the front door and the main players in this charade. About 30 minutes into the party, just as Mark was tapping a spoon against his beer bottle to make a toast, the doorbell rang. My mother, looking flustered, went to answer it. Standing on the porch was a man in a plain gray suit, holding a large manila envelope. "Mark Thompson?" the man asked, his voice polite but firm. My mother pointed toward my brother, a confused look on her face. The man walked into the room, his presence immediately sucking the festive air out of the space. He walked directly up to my brother, who was still standing with his spoon in the air. "Mark Thompson, you've been served." He handed the envelope to Mark. Then he turned to my parents. "David and Helen Thompson?" he asked. My father, looking pale as a ghost, nodded numbly. The process server handed each of them an identical envelope. "You've been served." The man then turned, gave me a brief, almost imperceptible nod that no one else would have noticed, and walked out the door. The silence in the room was deafening. The music was still playing softly from some hidden speaker, but no one spoke. Mark stared at the envelope in his hand as if it were a venomous snake. My mother looked from the envelope to me, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "What is this?" Mark finally choked out, tearing his envelope open. His face went from smug to confused to completely ashen as he read the first page of the court petition. "What the hell is this, Angela?" "It's a lawsuit, Mark," I said calmly, my voice carrying across the silent room. "It's a petition to have Mom and Dad removed as trustees for breach of their fiduciary duty. It's a demand for the immediate return of the $345,000 you stole from my son." A collective gasp went through the crowd. "We didn't steal it," my mother shrieked. Ed, finding her voice, "It was a loan." "A loan you made illegally by committing fraud," I countered, standing up. "A loan you made without my consent, and a loan used to purchase an asset that is explicitly forbidden by the terms of the trust." I let that last part hang in the air. My father, the accountant, was the first to understand. His eyes widened, and he frantically ripped open his own envelope, his hands shaking so much he could barely get the papers out. He scanned the pages, his face growing paler with every word. He knew what a specific clause meant. He knew the legal weight of it. The pool," he stammered, looking out the glass door at the sparkling turquoise water. "Elinor's clause about the pool." Mark just looked confused. "What about the pool?" "Grandma put a clause in the trust, Mark," I explained, my voice devoid of any emotion but cold, hard fact. "She forbade the use of trust funds to buy any property with an in-ground swimming pool. You, Mom, and Dad violated a direct, legally binding term of the trust. Your new house is in breach of contract. You have to sell it. The court will force you to." Tiffany, who had been standing beside Mark looking like a deer in headlights, let out a small sob. "Sell the house? We just bought it." "You didn't buy it," I corrected her. "You acquired it with funds designated for the medical care of a disabled child, and now the court is going to take it back." Mark finally looked at me, his face a mask of pure hatred. "You would do this to your own brother. You would make us homeless." "You made yourself homeless the moment you decided your desire for a new house was more important than Noah's ability to walk," I shot back. "You stood by and let our parents drain his entire future so you could throw a pool party. Well, the party's over." I turned to my parents. My mother was openly weeping. My father looked like he had aged 20 years in 20 minutes. "You had a sacred duty," I told them, my voice low and intense. "A duty to your mother's memory and to your grandson's life, and you failed, so now the court will do your job for you." I had said my piece. There was nothing left to do. I turned to Noah, whose face was a mixture of confusion and concern. I gave him a reassuring smile. "It's time to go, sweetie." As I pushed his wheelchair toward the front door, the guests parted for us like the Red Sea. No one said a word. The silence was broken only by the sound of Noah's wheels on the hardwood floor and Tiffany's hysterical sobs in the background. As I walked out the door and into the sunshine, I didn't feel a sense of triumph or joy. I just felt a profound, aching sense of release. The foundation of our family was a ruin, but for the first time in months, I felt like Noah and I could finally start building our own. The aftermath of the housewarming party was swift and brutal. The lawsuit was an open and shut case. Faced with irrefutable evidence of fraud and a clear violation of a specific trust clause, my parents' lawyer advised them to settle immediately to avoid a public, humiliating trial and potentially more severe legal consequences. The court hearing was a formality. A judge, with a stern and disapproving look on his face, officially removed my parents as trustees. He appointed a corporate trustee, an impartial third-party firm, to manage Noah's fund from now on, ensuring it would be protected by professionals, not by family members with skewed priorities. He then issued a judgment ordering the return of the full $345,000 to the trust, plus interest, within 90 days. As expected, my parents and Mark had no way to produce that kind of money. The "for sale" sign went up in front of Mark and Tiffany's dream house just 2 weeks after their disastrous party. The housing market was decent, but the forced, hurried nature of the sale meant they couldn't hold out for the best offer. They had to take what they could get fast. Tiffany, seeing that her dream of a glamorous life with a pool was dissolving, left Mark before the house even sold. Apparently, his charm wore off quickly when it wasn't accompanied by a 6-figure down payment. The house sold for enough to cover what they owed the trust and the legal fees. After everything was settled, Mark was left with almost nothing. He had to move into a small, dingy apartment on the other side of town. His promotion at the car dealership, the one my parents had used as proof of his newfound responsibility, turned out to be a fiction he had invented to sell them on the loan. He was, as he had always been, living paycheck to paycheck. My relationship with my parents and brother is non-existent now. They see me as a cold, vengeful monster who destroyed the family. They call me, leaving rambling, tearful voicemails alternating between begging for forgiveness and accusing me of being heartless. They don't understand, and perhaps never will, that they are the ones who destroyed the family. Why they did it the moment they decided one child's wants outweighed another's needs. They did it when they chose lies over loyalty. The foundation of our family wasn't destroyed by a lawsuit. It was rotted from within by their own actions. The lawsuit just exposed the decay. I don't waste my energy on anger anymore. All my focus is on Noah. With the trust fund restored and now professionally managed, a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I was able to enroll him in that intensive physical therapy program. The results have been incredible. His mobility has improved more in the last few months than it has in years. For the first time, he was able to walk the length of the parallel bars in his therapist's office, his face beaming with a pride that brought tears to my eyes. That is what the money was for. Not for a swimming pool or a backyard barbecue, but for that smile, for that victory. We have found a new kind of peace. Noah and I, our little world is quieter now, smaller, but it's built on a foundation of genuine love and unwavering trust between the two of us. I've learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the people who are supposed to be your biggest protectors can become your biggest threat. And sometimes you have to become a warrior to protect the ones you love, even if it means going to war with your own blood. My grandmother knew what she was doing. She didn't just leave Noah money, she left him a shield. That clause wasn't just a strange legal quirk. It was a testament to her wisdom, her understanding of human weakness, and her fierce, protective love for her great-grandson. She had built a fortress around his future, and when my family tried to tear it down, they found the walls were stronger than they ever imagined. I lost a brother and my parents in this process, but Noah has gained a secure future, and I have gained the knowledge that I am strong enough to defend it no matter the cost. We are rebuilding our lives, just the two of us, on a new foundation. A foundation not of broken promises, but of resilience, strength, and a love that is truly unconditional. And that is a home that no one can ever take from us.